Welcome to Revolution Against Evolution. I'm your host, Doug Sharp.
Your co-host, Rich Gear here. And Doug, you've got kind of an interesting show. What are we titling the show?
Well, we're going to be talking about the amazing circulatory system.
Okay.
And there are many such systems in the human body. But let's start out just by saying that if you go from the heart, and then if you took away the lungs from your body, then the circulatory system wouldn't work. It wouldn't be
Correct.
performing anything.
Right.
And so you have to then explain the heart and the lung appearing at the same time in the theory of evolution.
You know, right now we've done many shows in the past, showing how even at a microbiological level, or it's virtually impossible. When we get to the gross morphological, when you get to organs and hearts and livers and lungs, right. It is just, to me, a nightmare for evolution. It's amazing how you can just sort of like obliterate the facts of science and basically making up stories to explain how things have happened, when really in real life it never works this way. I mean, the idea that unless everything works, nothing works is no more evident than it is in this situation. Whether you're dealing with a circulatory system, whether you're dealing with the reproductive system, whether you're dealing with the excretory system, whether you're dealing with neurological system, nervous system,
muscular system.
Every single thing seems to need something else that's to make it work, and if one thing is not in sync, nothing will work. In other words, it's like in evolution, slow random processes, even the hopeful monster theory, which they've come up with, the Goldschmidt idea or punctuated equilibria, doesn't really explain how you can have everything come to pass at the same time, because that's what you really have to have happen. Is things have to happen at the same time. I don't know. Do you want to start with anything in particular, Doug, in this particular, as far as in the circulatory thing? How did you want to go with this?
Well, I want to first start out by listing the systems of the human body.
Okay, that's good.
So that we know that they're all interconnected. They're not something that stands alone by itself. The circulatory system is, of course, where the process where the heart pumps the blood throughout the entire body and brings nutrients from your digestive system, which is the second system.
Right.
So you eat food, and they have the nutrients being carried by the blood around the entire body to your extremities. Mm-hmm. And so everything in the body needs the blood, and so you have
blood is the life.
and then you have the endocrine system, which is supplying the body through using hormones. The integumentary system is the skin, the hair, the nails, and the sweat and that sort of stuff.
Well, the skin is apparently it's the largest technically organ of the body, from what I understand.
It is, yeah.
It's what you process, to get rid of your excess heat and waste material through sweat is one way to get it out. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting thing. Okay, what else you got?
You have the immune system, okay, which is also the lymphatic system, and it defends the body against pathogens, and so you need that. And it's tied in with the circulatory system, because when you're pumping blood, it pumps this lymphatic fluid as well. And also the cerebro-spinal is also the fluid is a system of that sort, where it's pumping that cerebro-spinal fluid. And
what does that do? I don't really know what that does. I know it's important, but that's all I know. I really don't know what exactly it does.
Well, it carries. I think it's part of the nervous system. It carries that information up and down the spine and to the extremes of the nerves.
Okay.
And so, that's where if you go to a chiropractor and he adjusts you, he's actually opening up the flow of that cerebro-spinal fluid and making it work for you. The muscular system, of course, the heart is a muscle, and so you have to have that rhythmic pumping of the blood and making it flow throughout the entire...
Well, there, Doug, there's an interesting thing. You talk about the muscular system. The heart, that's involuntary. I mean, it works no matter what. Yet we have other muscles that you have to exercise it, and even that seems to be an interesting part of the design network. They're both muscles, but they function in different ways. So.
So you have the renal system and the urinary system, which excretes all the waste materials out. You have the reproductive system, the sexual organs, and for the production of offspring. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. And then the skeletal system. And so you have to have
which holds us together.
It holds us all together, and it provides the foundation for all the work. If we didn't... Let's say we were just a blob of jelly.
We couldn't do much, yeah.
That's something that you have to have it all work together in order to, so that that's what life is. And any of these things, if you have failure in any of these things, it's likely that you're not going to have much of a life, or usually you'll die if you don't have them all working together properly. So I would say we need to talk about that. The Bible says that the life is in the blood, and we talk about what Jesus did on the cross. He shed his blood for us and for the remissions of his sins.
Interesting, enigmatic things. Why blood is so important? I mean, we know it is, but why is it more important than, let's say, the other, the skin or what, I don't know, but there's something about the blood that the shedding of blood, without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. And that is kind of an interesting thing about that, that the blood is, and that's part of the circulatory system, right?
Yeah, it is. And the circulatory system involves the lung, the lungs to the respiratory system, because, at first it goes, picks up the oxygen, and also picks up the nutrients from the digestive system, and it just takes these materials and it's sort of weird. In the digestive system, you're eating stuff and actually causing stuff to be broken down and taken apart, and then it reassembles it. In the body, it's taking the food that you eat and then breaks it down into its individual parts. You remember what I had talked about, the amino acids and the proteins and the sugars and all that stuff that makes up life, and they have the individual components, but then to chemically outside of life have it all reassemble again is a fairly complicated procedure within in a laboratory, and to try to reproduce it. And so it's not something that is you just take for granted when you eat your hamburger, that it's going to be used in your body, and you can actually eat a whole lot of junk the body takes.
Well, do I know that,
and we'll take this stuff and do quite a bit with it, even though it's not the healthiest for you, But but God made you designed so that you have a variety of fruits and vegetables and meat and the proteins, grains, and they all have
That's
have
the
their
fascinating
roles.
thing, Doug. You think about it, is that we have a creator that designed us to enjoy color, taste. We get hungry, and he's provided nutrients and food that gives us pleasure to eat it. This is the kind of creator we serve, is one who is really I mean, really, he could have made everything look like, taste like cardboard. Color, we could have had black and white. No sense of music. I mean, I think the wonderful, interesting, even in this world that's fallen, there's so much beauty. There's so much interesting things to eat, to experience, to color. I mean, I look at the whole tapestry of experiences that we have as a human being that the Lord has enabled us to have. And what's interesting, we're taking apart one part of it, the body, or if you will, the different systems that are in the body. But all of these things, like the visual, the idea of being able to visual input, audio input, all of these things are so complicated that it's an amazing thought, Doug, that if people just didn't want to be an atheist, they would never come up with evolution.
Right, yeah.
I mean, everything screams designer. Now, I will say one thing. Let me ask you this. It's probably going a little bit far afield. Just to get us a speculation here is that, we've got the immune system, or the thing that filters out pathogens. Before the fall, would we have needed that?
Well,
I'm just curious. It's one of those things about that,
I'm thinking that the body is designed to handle bad stuff that comes in your body and flush it out.
We know that now.
And there used to be years ago, and I think Henry M. Morris promoted the idea that the second law of thermodynamics came into play at the time that.
Yeah, we've kind of discounted that in recent years.
Right, we have.
Because how can you digest food without heat? Well, you can't.
Right.
You can't even eat food if the second law was already in there. We've come up. To me, my way of understanding is the Lord is about renewing. He constantly renews you. He is a self-sustainer. He's in himself, always constantly renewing. And we see glimmers of that obviously you had to eat of the tree of knowledge, tree of life, right? And in the age to come, there's the trees for the healing of nations. People could go in and out, and they could take substance from the tree of life. I think it's more metaphorical in Revelation, but it's literal in Genesis. But either way, it's interesting. There's this idea, it says, don't be conformed to the image of this world, but transformed by the renewing of your mind. There's always this idea of that the Lord renews things. So the second law seemed to me, it would have already been in operation, but we never run down because we would have constantly been renewed. So maybe the idea of pathogens removal and things like that would have just been working at a much higher level, or maybe there wasn't any bad things. I don't know how that works.
What I think is that there was in the beginning just good bacteria.
Yes, that's what I think.
We have good bacteria that lives in us now. That's the majority of what you have. But you do have mutated bacteria. Right. Like, for example, Clostridium tetani, which is the Clostridium bacteria is within your body right now, but the tetani is a mutation where it produces a poison rather than something that's healthy.
Okay.
And so it's a mutated bacteria that causes tetanus.
Oh.
And so that that is a disease, and I think a lot of what we see with disease is the mutations that have accumulated over the years and bacteria and in our body you have a genetic defect that makes you susceptible to maybe not producing some of the things in your body that you once did. Or would have if you didn't have this mutation. And so you have a mutation that causes cancer. You have, and because cancer cells are really cells that you have a regulatory system where you get enough of a thing that it's making, then it shuts off the making of that.
The idea of shutting it off is
yeah, it's interesting because the proteins that are working like that, they interlock and they produce it's producing stuff, and once you have enough of that producing it, it actually connects to that protein that's making doing the process, and it conforms it, pushes up against it, so it doesn't, it's converts into different shapes, so the enzymatic activity isn't working. And so it turns off the process. It's like a servo mechanism.
Okay.
And so when you have it that this mutation occurs, then that servo mechanism is disrupted, and you keep producing stuff, producing cells when it should have stopped, and you get these cancerous.
Yes. If they could only figure out a way to to make that shut off,
Right.
And they don't know how to do that. I mean, the best they do that with the chemo and the radiation.
Well, the chemo, all the doctors know how to do is to drug or cut.
Yeah, to drug you or cut you. Yeah.
And so that's really what's going on, is the drugs just make it poisonous enough, but not poisonous enough to kill you, but poisonous enough to kill the cancer
That's the whole
cells.
idea. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you strong. They take that to the nth degree. If the chemo doesn't kill you, then you'll survive. But it kills everything, and they don't know how to fine tune things to get to that cell that's mutated, which would be interesting if they could figure out how to do that. But Doug, let's talk a little bit about that. Or did you want to go more in life in the blood?
I was going to talk about what happens when you have a blood clot.
Oh, okay. All right, because I wanted to get to that thing about the newborn baby thing. If we could just do a little bit, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, if you cut your finger, and I remember when I was selling Cutco knives in 1970. I was demonstrating, a sharp knife is a safe knife, and guess what? I still got a scar right here where I cut myself right to the bone.
Oh my goodness!
And this thing bled and it bled, but finally, it healed up, and you just sort of put a Band-Aid on it, and then you just watch it for a while, and maybe put some little salve on it or whatever you do to make it heal. But it's not that stuff that heals it. It's that all of a sudden these chemicals that are in your blood start forming these cross-beddings pattern across there. And so it starts to immediately plug up that hole that is there, and then it forms the scab, and then it repairs itself. Now, if I had a truck like that, and I have a rock that hits me in the windshield, I don't have anything that's going to repair my windshield. Yeah. Or it's going to
that would be
repair the rust.
Yeah, organic windshields,
Yeah, that'd be, or get in an accident and hit a tree, then you don't have a self-repairing truck. And there's very few things that I think man has made that has a self-repair mechanism in it.
No, what's interesting though, when you say that though, the Lord does allow us to do things to augment or help. In other words, I remember he talked about cutting your finger. I cut my right between my thumb with a big knife, and it cut it really bad. I ended up getting 11 stitches because it was so bad. I really cut it good, and I don't even see a scar now. But it's interesting. We can sew it up and help it along, but it doesn't really it doesn't heal it. It's something that's already in your system that actually does the healing, but it helps it so you don't bleed out before you get healed. It's like when you got a fever. If your fever doesn't get too high, you'll be okay. But if it gets too high, you can do things to bring the fever down. And I think it's interesting how the Lord allows us to do the things that we can do. He wants us to do things to help the systems that is arguably very efficient, very amazing, but sometimes needs a little bit of help, you know, and it's kind of interesting that I wonder if that's part of the fallen world or not. But still, the idea that it does cross-bedding and, like you say, we take clotting for granted unless you're a hemophiliac, you know, and again, that's a mutation. You know?
That's right, and the mutations explains a lot. You know why we have illnesses, why we have disease and sickness, and so you were saying that this article that I just showed you about the baby, you know, what happens at the time of birth.
Yeah.
You actually are switching circulatory systems at that point.
Yes. What goes to the placenta to your own, right? Is that what happens?
That's what happens. And so there has to be a mechanism that makes that all work during the birth process in the birth canal.
Yeah. When you're transitioning over.
Yeah, when you're transitioning over, and there'll be the switch comes over when the baby draws its first breath, and we come into the world with a spanking, you know, and some of us still need it, you know.
But they basically suck any fluid out of your thing. But they clamp the placenta or the umbilical cord, and once it's like when they clamp that, it switches over.
Yeah.
That is, to me, I did not know that. When I read that article, I went, really? I didn't. So everything switches. It goes from getting the nutrients, the waste removal. I mean, there's very little that's done in their own organs. It's all pretty much the placenta takes care of all of that. But as soon as he clamps it, and boom, he takes his first breath, it's like the switch. There's a switch that turns on, and suddenly your own organs are kicking in. How does that happen, Doug?
Yeah, it's amazing. You can't really imagine it, you know. If you take a look at the newborn baby and this new life that has just come about, you know, how can you not believe in God? And the people who take that life in the womb and abort a baby, how do you actually come to that point in your mind where you think that's okay? It's an amazing thing, especially if you consider the anatomy of this whole birth process. Here you have this parasitic thing sitting in your belly and taking over your body. I can see why some ladies think that this is my body. How come I've got to carry this this kid? You know.
So God designed it. Sorry, but that's, you know, take it up with the Creator. And so some of you probably do. You shake your fist, but the reality is, you have the privilege of bringing new life into the world. You know, I can't. You know, granted, the guy helps, but we really don't have much to do with it as far as bringing it to term, and that's something very special that a woman only can do, you know, and that she does, and it brings a new life into the world. But there's a price to be paid for it, you know. There is. It's tough. You get your body stretched out, and all kinds of things happen. But boy, you see the joy of having the little ones come into the world. Like I said, I got my grandkids now, you know, and you got yours. And of course, my own kids, I wouldn't trade them for anything. They're just just so amazing. Just bring new life. But the woman gets to do that. She gets that privilege. But there is a price. That is true. There's no doubt about it. But still, the idea that you know, the organs could go through the mother. It's not really parasitic in a sense, because it's not really. It's designed to be symbiotic almost.
That's right.
You know? Yeah. It's really, but it's a separate entity. This is what I think. You know, the women who say it's my body, I said your body's carrying it, but it's not your body that you're killing. It's somebody else, and that's the whole thing. Even when they try to euphemistically call it a fetus, you know what that really means?
Yeah.
Little one.
Little one. Yeah.
Yeah, it just means little one. It's just a way to basically bait and switch, but Doug, again, we have a lot of the evolutionary logic to thank for that, getting that put in way back in the 70s here in this country, and other ones. You used the Ernst-Haeckel argument, Doug. You used that for years. You weren't totally human when you were going through your evolutionary stages.
Yeah, it recapitulates the evolutionary development.
Which has been known to be a fraud for 100 years, but nevertheless, they taught it up into the 60s. And somebody was telling me they just saw it was just still being taught.
Right,
I said,
right.
I can't. That to me shocks me. I mean,
well, they need that, for them to explain, how development in the womb recapitulates how development took place over millions of years.
Yeah, it salves their conscience. But the point of it is all the systems in the body are so interrelated, interconnected. It's not just like, okay, the circulatory system, as complicated as that is, as often it's, the lymphatic system is here, the immune system is here, the digestive system, they're all connected, Doug, in such and all of that. You have the neurological system. We didn't even talk about that. We didn't really have time, and we're running out, but all of these systems are interconnected in such a way that it's like inextricably, if you take one thing apart, the whole thing falls apart.
If you take away the brain, the brain supplies the heart with its information to when to pump, and so it's actually the electrical system of the body.
I know. And
so you need that to make it all all work together, and then the cerebro-spinal fluid has...
Well, we know about that with Carol.
With Carol,
yeah. She had a lot of that backed up in her brain there, and that's what caused a lot of the problems. We were trying to get some of that, so it was flowing, and it is flowing. But there were some other things that were involved there as well. But that's a thing that happened. But we know that it's used not only merely to protect the brain, it insulates it, but it also acts kind of like a washing machine.
Yeah, it does, and if it backs up, it forms lesions, and
it won't remove toxins.
Right.
It's really interesting. I think of all the things, Doug. The idea that we sleep at night, and that removes toxins from your body. The idea of rest.
Somebody said it's sort of like a computer doing a defrag and a hard disk.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And deleting files and getting rid of stuff, and I think when you dream, that's what you're doing.
Well, Doug, I tell you, the older I get, I have to download some files because I can't put anything new in it.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Doug, if there's one last thought you want to leave the audience with before we leave, just anything.
Well, going back to life is in the blood. That's what Jesus said, and when we take communion, He's reminding us that He's the creator of the blood, and He's the one who gave His life for our salvation.
He gave His blood so we can live.
We'll see you next time on Revolution Against Evolution.